call David Clark.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I want to talk again about the title of the bill because I had only raised one of my suggestions when the bell so rudely interrupted me earlier. The second suggested title that I have is the Act as being called the Telecommunications Government Waste Amendment Act, because that would label clearly the problem we have here, where the government is refusing to evaluate this proposal before it takes any further steps. I want to also just quickly touch on, before I elaborate on that, a point raised by my colleague, Mr Whāwhoi, in his contribution. He talked about how things were now as clear as mud. Whether it was a tax or a levy, the Minister says it's a levy. The industry says it's a tax. Mr Cunliffe has raised the point that the OECD would define it probably as a tax. And we have numerous other references, including from the Minister's own department, referring to it as something in the nature of a tax, quote unquote. So the Minister now claims that she's the only one who's right on that point, and that everybody else is wrong. And perhaps it is as clear as mud in the sense that the Prime Minister's promise not to raise GST was as clear as mud. The promises made by the government that it wouldn't raise that it would raise wages by $7,000 by 2016 were made in the same vein. All these promises were meant in one way, and now the government is trying to say they mean something else. It said it would get to surplus. That was the central promise of the last election campaign from this government. Well, Mr Speaker, we know now that that has not been achieved. Mr Speaker, it is not clear that this is a bill about a development levy. It is a development tax, as I've suggested in my previous contribution, but might well be labelled waste. Anything that is not measured, and this is a simple precept, we don't know whether it is actually being well spent or not. We've suggested alternative ways it could be funded, and we've asked the Minister to explain, or others have in this House, why it will not be evaluated properly. Questions that hint at conflicts of interest have been raised. I'm not myself aware of the detail of that, but I think the Minister ought to be on her feet explaining why she's not going to evaluate it. Even if she is going to press ahead without public scrutiny on this bill, I think it would be reasonable for her to explain to us why no evaluation is happening. This is why it could well be called the Government Waste Bill, Mr Speaker, because the facts that we have, insofar as we have them, are that $60 million has been spent on this particular initiative so far to only get 8,500 connections. That's the best estimate available. Now that's $7,000 per connection. And the quality out there is not great. We've heard that from several MPs who have people coming into their office complaining. I've certainly had them. I took the petition to Select Committee, which has seen a change in behaviour as a result. And I know my colleague Claire Curran has done the same, and I do encourage others to do so. But this is a wasteful bill. If we are not going to evaluate whether the program works, and all of the evidence points to it not working and not being an effective use of taxpayer money, then there is an arrogance in not evaluating it, in not being able to explain, in not being able to actually front up and say this is why we think it's worth investing again. I don't think the public at home are going to say that $7,000 per connection is good value for money. There are plenty of other ways that we could get broadband there quicker. I think the overseas experience would be that it could get there cheaper and be of a better quality. This is a government that needs to do some explaining. So I am hoping the Minister will soon get on her feet and explain to us why it is that what appears to be incredibly wasteful spending is not being evaluated. We all want better broadband. We all want better broadband. All of us would like to have in our electorate offices happy people coming through saying, look, I've just started a new business and I've got this great fast broadband and now I'm able to participate in the world. Reality is, it's not the experience. This government has been in government nearly 7 years now, and we heard Melissa Lee earlier complaining about the poor quality of broadband. The irony when the government members are also complaining about the poor quality of broadband despite having been here for quite some time seems to be lost on them. So I suggest, Mr Speaker, that in addition to being considered as a title, the Telecommunications Development Tax Amendment Act, that the alternative title also be considered the Telecommunications Government Waste Amendment Act. Thank you, sir.
Order. By way, I will give I will give a call shortly, but by way of being helpful and in no way being patronising, I will note that the debate is becoming somewhat repetitious at the moment. The discussion around this clause 1 on the title is the widest ranging part of this debate. After that, we move on to clauses 2, the commencement, 3, the Principal Act, the amendments which are around clause 3A, and then clause B, the schedule. These will be very narrow debates, and very little leeway will be given apart as far as they address those parts. Members seeking clarification on this could look at Speaker's ruling number 114.7. But I just draw that to the attention of members that now they should be looking to draw on new, novel and innovative avenues of inquiry or debate or discussion. And I call Tracy Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll definitely try